Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for Euro 2020 fantasy football content. You have no idea how many times I had to re-record that intro to make sure I say the right thing. Always want to say Fantasy Premier League. That will be coming soon, but we still are on Euro stuff. We're only in match day 2, for God's sake. So yeah, still loads to talk about with Euro Fantasy. And guys, today I'm going to share with you how I got on in match day 1, or at least how I've got on so far, because there are still a few games to play as I record this video. So still a little bit to talk about there, but we are going to show you what my scores are for match day 1, and then we're going to go on to show you what I'm going to be doing for match day 2. And I'll tell you now, guys, I have already activated my Limitless chip, so it's going to be a little bit of a Limitless draft as well as a demonstration of what I'm kind of doing with my fantasy team. So very excited to show you guys what I'm doing. I think we'll just crack straight on and look at my scores from this week, match day 1. But first of all, please do like the video. It really helps the channel out. And of course, subscribe if you're new around here and you want very, very regular Euro fantasy tips. So here we have my match day 1 scores. Just one player left to play for me. That is Cristiano Ronaldo. I imagine it's the same kind of situation for a lot of you guys. My score so far is 64. My world rank is 46,000, which is not too bad for a start. I'm not too worried. I'm not complaining about that. It's sort of in the top 1.5% of all players. So from that point of view, it's really good. Now I've just got to make sure that I keep it consistent, keep it going throughout the tournament, and yeah, possibly we could finish with a really, really nice world rank indeed. Hoping for, you know, the top 10,000, top 5,000 of players if possible. But we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get a bit further into the tournament. But yeah, yes, some really interesting scores. Obviously, we started off with Berardi as captain, which did a really good job. The next day, I thought I'd roll it. I'd go to Lukaku as the captain, and we've stuck with Lukaku as the captain throughout the entire match day, and I think that was the right decision. I do kind of feel like 10 points is the place where you want to stop thinking about switching your captains, because after that, you know, it's going to take a real bit of luck to get too many more points than 10 points. So if your player gets 10 points, I do recommend that's roughly the time where you would want to start considering just leaving it on that player. So that's exactly what we did. Spinazzola came in clutch. I do feel a little bit hard done by some of the players on the bench. You know, Denier, who would have thought he wouldn't start? You know, that would come as a real surprise to a lot of us. Same with Wijndal for the Netherlands. No one really expected that he wouldn't start either. So 2 0-pointers sat on my bench there. And those were both players and their teams both. Well, I mean, Denier would have kept a clean sheet. Wijndal would probably not have got a clean sheet, even if he did play. So that's not, it's not as a big deal with Wijndal. Maybe he could have got forward and got some attacking contributions, maybe. But Denier is a kind of bit disappointed because he's like, that would have been 6 points had he played. So a little bit disappointed there, but it's kind of the luck of the draw, the roll of the dice. You can't predict with 100% certainty all of the lineups. That's kind of part of the fun of the game, right? But other than that, there was some interesting things. Obviously, Hradecky had got 13 points because of his penalty save and the clean sheet there, which I guess that's a little bit of good fortune, but you get that good fortune by using the tactic of starting your goalkeeper who hasn't played yet first, and then you see what kind of score they get and move on to the next one. So yes, it is lucky that he got that many points, but at the same time, you create your own luck in this game, don't you? So yeah, some very good scores, a few disappointing scores as well. Some players who look really, really good, some players who didn't look so good. A few lessons learned as well, but overall, what a fabulous start. I'm really not, I'm not complaining about the start at all. It's not amazing, but it definitely puts me in a really good position moving forward. One more final note on Christian Eriksen. I have to say, obviously he was in my team, he was in my starting 11, and you know, a real moment in football to make you think and make you consider that some things are a little bit bigger than football, some things are a little bit bigger than fantasy. And I really do wish Eriksen the best and the speediest of recoveries, because that really did hit home when I watched what happened. And guys, if you haven't watched what happened to Christian Eriksen, I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest, because it's quite emotional. It's yeah, but yeah, hopefully Eriksen, I'm so glad he's up and he's talking and he's feeling good. But yeah, just wishing that a very speedy recovery to him indeed. Right, so I suppose you want to know about my match day 2 Limitless team. So we're going to go through that today. There's a couple of risks, a couple of interesting ones in there. But I think, guys, before we start, I do have to put on my England headband because, well, you'll see why. You'll see why in a second, but we may be slightly England heavy in this draft. So just as a pre-warning, I've got the England headband on, and there's going to be a few England players. I don't care how ridiculous I look. It's all for fun. It's for content, right, guys? It's for content. Yeah, this is not a great look, but it's fine. Guys, let's start off in goal. Obviously, we've got unlimited money, so I can pick anyone I like. So bear that in mind when you see these picks. But we're starting off in goal with Olsen, the Sweden goalkeeper. Now, this is kind of the tactic that I'm going for with my Limitless chip. And that is to have two very, very strong goalkeepers, obviously. But what I'm thinking is for my bench goalkeeper to be a safety goalkeeper, a goalkeeper I think is really just going to keep a clean sheet and probably not make too many saves, but very good chance of a clean sheet. And my first goalkeeper who has to play before that goalkeeper is going to be my risky goalkeeper, a goalkeeper who I think is gonna keep a clean sheet, but I think they're also, they're gonna have a lot of shots against them, so they're gonna be some save points in there. So that's why I've gone for Olsen. Playing for Sweden, I do think Sweden will concede a few chances in this game against Slovakia, but at the same time, I don't really see Slovakia as a team with too much quality in the forward area. So although they will take shots, I don't think they're going to be too troubling shots. They might be quite a lot of long range shots, for example, and for that reason Olsen is going to be able to pick up some save points. And if he does get a clean sheet, and like I said, this is the risky one, if he does keep his clean sheet, he could also get a couple of saves there as well, maybe one save point, maybe two save points, depending on how many saves he makes, and it could be a score of 7 or 8 potentially. So he's got a slightly higher ceiling as a goalkeeper, but it is a little bit riskier than going for a Donnarumma, a Lloris. These are kind of goalkeepers who are just going to get you 6 points, not really going to make enough saves to get any more points than 6. And that's why we've gone for Olsen first, and then we're going to switch out to the goalkeeper on my bench, who I may as well tell you now is Lloris, who is my safety goalkeeper if it doesn't go to plan with Olsen. But that's kind of my tactic there, just to gain a small little edge, hopefully, on some other people who will be less likely to take risks with their goalkeepers. But if you've got 2 shots, you've got 2 bites of the cherry, you can have one goalkeeper, then swap him out for another one. Why not have a risky one and then a safe one as a backup? It's just a little thought that I thought I'd go for. But anyway, we'll move on to defence. We're playing 4 at the back to start off with, and we've got Trippier as my first pick, kind of on set pieces, quite an advanced attacking player, particularly in a more open game against Scotland, which I'm sure this will be a more open game against Scotland. This headband is still not straight, but this is why I'm wearing this. The reason number one why I'm wearing the England headband. But yes, I do think Trippier, being the main set piece guy, maybe Mason Mount takes some of them, but Trippier's going to be taking some of them. So he's going to have shots, he's going to have crosses, but also England, the way England play right now, which is quite a rigid defensive way. Some people call it negative. I completely understand why you would call it negative. But that's the kind of way that England play. They are likely to get clean sheets throughout the tournament. They've already got 1 to their name. I think they can get more. I think Trippier is probably the preferred defender. If he comes out and he doesn't play at left back anymore, I'm not too worried, because I think actually Kyle Walker didn't have a great game at right back for England last game. So I do think Trippier is possibly the first name on the team sheet in terms of fullbacks, and then maybe Walker's playing on the right, Trippier's playing on the left, maybe Shaw or Chilwell comes in on the left and Trippier remains in his place on the right. And unless I hear anything differently, that's how I'm going to assume things are going to go. So yeah, pretty happy with that one, and a little bit differential as well. Then we've got Spinazzola, one of the standout players of the first match day. Oh my god, he was so attacking. I didn't actually realise until I watched him play that he's actually right-footed, which explains why he was cutting in so much. So he's running that left-hand channel and actually cutting in towards the box, and it worked fantastically. He looked brilliant. It really was an absolute a real treat, when you find that gem of a fullback, a defender. We've been looking at Spinazzola. We knew that he was going to be good, but I don't think we realised quite how good he was. So that turned out to be an absolutely fantastic pick. Starting off with 9 points, amazing. I think he's going to continue. I do think Spinazzola, as long as he can keep his start in place, and I don't see why he wouldn't with his performance in the first game, he is going to be making crosses, taking shots. He's going to be a really good pick, and I'm probably just going to try and keep him in my team for as long as possible. He's going to be a survivor in this team. And next up, Meunier, who annoyingly was in one of my drafts, but then I took him out because I wasn't convinced he wasn't going to start. That's why I took him out of my draft, because I thought Meunier maybe he gets benched for Castagna, so we'll take Meunier out. what do you know? Castagna gets injured. Meunier comes in and scores, what was it, 15, 16 points, or maybe 14 points. I don't know. It was some crazy amount of points for an amazing performance. But he was playing as a really, really advanced on that right-hand side, which is the reason why I kind of like the look of him in the first place, but just was scared that he wasn't going to start the game. Now, there isn't really anyone else. I mean, there is, but, you know, now looking at the Belgium squad, Meunier looks like he's probably nailed on at right wing back, right midfield for the rest of the tournament now, because there's no Castagna, who is the obvious other guy to play there. Meunier, long term, has been a starter for Belgium, and I think that's just going to continue as normal now with Castagna out for the tournament. So, very nice. I do like this. Denmark perhaps lacking a little bit in firepower going forward, which does give us a good opportunity for a clean sheet. I do think Belgium are an adequate clean sheet team. I do, and Meunier, the position he was playing so advanced up the pitch, again, I really, really like that. There's going to be a bit of a theme with these defenders, but yeah, there you go, Meunier again. Now, next up, we've got Dumfries again, playing so high up the pitch. I think this is one of those things when we're looking at teams who play at 3 at the back and a 5-man midfield, these right backs slash right wing backs slash right midfielders really are pushing really high up the pitch, and that's exactly what we saw with Dumfries, just like with Meunier. Dumfries perhaps even more, had 2 huge opportunities to score. Obviously he scored one of them. He was also fairly positive in his creativity on that right hand side as well, and he was playing so far up the pitch. So Spinazzola, Meunier, Dumfries, all 3 of them are players who are listed as defenders, and yet they are essentially, their role in the team is almost as attackers. That's their role in the team, to really be wingers in that team. So extra points for goals, you know, points for clean sheets, despite the fact that they're playing as attacking minded players. This is exactly what we want. And on a Limitless, you can have whoever you want. Why not just go for those expensive fullback players who do look so positive? But anyway, moving on into midfield. Again, England hat on. Again, we have got Raheem Sterling. I was really impressed with him in the first game. I do think that he is important to this England team. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, why don't England play Grealish? Why don't England play, you know, whoever else, Jadon Sancho, whatever, in that position? Sterling just has to play because there's no other player in that team who's going to make those runs. The runs exactly like the one that Sterling scored. We need that player in the England team. So he is going to be playing pretty much every game because there's not really anyone quite like that who will make those runs. You can say Jadon Sancho. Jadon Sancho might want it short, might want to take on a player. Sterling, he's happy to just give and run and just run it in behind, run those channels, which is going to be really quite nice, I think, against a Scotland team who will really be up for this game. Scotland, I don't think they're going to be too negative in this game. Even if they are negative, they do give up a couple of chances. And Scotland are going to push on. If Scotland go 1-0 down or something like that, you think they're just going to sit back and accept that? No way. They're going to be so up for this game. And that, hopefully, what I'm thinking is it's going to leave a little bit of space in behind a little bit, which might allow Sterling to capitalise on that a little bit against the centre-backs for Scotland, who really aren't, there's not really too much pace there. So for that reason, I do think Sterling might be able to have a bit of a field day there, but that's kind of my thinking. Anyway, I move on to Wijnaldum against Austria. I wasn't really convinced by Wijnaldum in the current Netherlands formation until I watched the game and saw actually Wijnaldum, maybe he is playing a little bit deeper than he has done in the past for Netherlands, but he's still playing, you know, taking plenty of shots. He's still really, really interested in scoring goals and being part of the attacking play, which I didn't know if I fully expected, but he very much is still a part of that. Austria, again, I'm not fully convinced by them quite yet. I do think they're one of the weaker teams in the tournament. You know, in a tournament of 24 teams, the 24 top teams in Europe, there's not really such thing as a weak team, but within the context of the tournament, Austria, I would say, are one of the weaker ones, certainly in the bottom half of the teams. And Netherlands looked super impressive in that first game. So yeah, let's see what they can do going forward again, because attacking wise, I think there's a lot to be said for that Netherlands team. I certainly do. But Yarmolenko is my next pick, and if I wasn't on a Limitless, there'd be no way I'd be choosing Yarmolenko because he's just far too expensive. But historically, he is the best attacking player for Ukraine for a long time now. He's scored loads of goals for them. No one else really comes close to Yarmolenko's scoring record for Ukraine. Well, maybe a few players come close, but he really has been the star of the show for a while now. I was kind of looking for his record, and his goal scoring record is really good for Ukraine. And hopefully we can continue that against a game against Macedonia. And although maybe I hyped up Macedonia a little bit as an underdog story, at the end of the day, and this is what I keep trying to say, You know, there will be underdogs, there will be shock results, but at the end of the day, with fantasy, we do kind of still have to target those minnows in the tournament, the weaker teams. We have to look at who are the typical weaker teams. I think we saw that the 3-1 loss against Austria, you know, the only chance that Macedonia even got, well, the only goal that they got anyway, was due to a really, really bad mistake from Austria. So in that respect, I do think North Macedonia are going to be one of the weakest teams in the tournament, but that's not really a surprise to anyone. Ukraine, on the other hand, looked quite positive in attack. I kind of always knew that Ukraine did have a few fragilities in their defence, but going forward, very, very impressive again. Yarmolenko obviously scored that banger of a goal. Maybe he'll take that confidence, or not that he needs it when he's playing international football. And yeah, hopefully he can do the business against North Macedonia. But like I said, he is so expensive. If it wasn't for the fixture, if it wasn't for the fact that I'm on Limitless chip, I probably wouldn't be going for him. But since I can do pretty much whatever I like, that's kind of the fun of the Limitless chip. Yeah, that's hopefully going to be a nice big score. And then we'll finish off the midfield with Insigne, who was basically one of the most impressive players I thought in the first game. I know Switzerland is not a particularly easy game, but I didn't think Turkey would be a particularly easy game, and I was just so impressed with the way Italy played their attacking play. I always think of Italy as a defensive team, but you know, some of the quality they show, Insigne, Immobile, Berardi, they look so good. They look really good going forward. So that is definitely a player who stood out to me in the first round of fixtures. Insigne, he was just on it, non-stop on it throughout that first game. So yeah, hopefully another big one for him. We'll move up into our forward positions. We've got two up here. England on again for Harry Kane, of course. I just feel like he is probably one of the best strikers in the whole tournament, if not one of the best strikers in world football. Maybe he couldn't play exactly how you would have wanted to in the first game against Croatia. Croatia, the most difficult game that England have in the group. So, look, I don't think any of us expected Kane to have an amazing game in the first game. Maybe a few more patriotic people maybe expected a little bit more from Kane. But looking at the fixtures, that was always going to be the one I could probably live without Kane. Now, for this one, a game against Scotland, I do think that Kane can do a little bit more. He did have a huge chance against Croatia. On another day, he scores that. On this day, against Scotland, I don't doubt that he will score it. And Kane is kind of a player I'm really fearful of not having in this game. You know, a lot of English people would be playing this game who will just, every single person in the whole of England probably has Kane in their Euro fantasy team. And around the world, I know there's a lot of appreciation for the quality of Kane as a striker. His record for England is phenomenal. He's on penalties and always scores them, and England get a lot of penalties awarded to him as well. And the last few times we've played Scotland, you know, we usually score 2 or 3 goals against Scotland. It's usually quite an open game, quite an interesting and fun game to watch for sure. So I do think there's going to be a few goals in there, and I really wouldn't be surprised if Kane would be the scorer, because he's Kane. He scores most goals. If England are scoring, you know, flip a coin, it lands on heads, then it's Kane's goal, isn't it? So it's really that kind of situation when we're talking about England and their goal scorers. And then, of course, we've got Griezmann up front there as well. Quite like Griezmann for France in general. His record is amazing. He's kind of scored, you know, like 4 or 5 goal contributions in his last 5 or 6 games for France. I think he just turns it up. He's on another level when he plays for France. He's just a different player entirely. So it's so amazing to see him play for France. He plays in kind of a central attacking midfield role rather than a direct striker. And I do think this game against Hungary, that might lend itself to Griezmann being in the team and doing a good job in the team as well, because I don't know if, you know, the runs in behind, I don't know if they'll be necessarily as effective, and it could be those intricate areas in the middle, you know, just outside the box, which might be all the more important for getting those goals, as Hungary sit all men behind the ball, probably play quite negatively, drop back, that kind of thing. Because they're going to have to, because this is going to be the hardest game they play in the entire tournament. It's the hardest game anyone could play in the highest tournament. So of course you're going to try and sit back and minimize damage and hope you can get something on the counter attack. That's just how things work, and you kind of got to accept that. So from that perspective, what kind of French attackers are going to benefit from that? Griezmann definitely stands out for me on that one. And if I just bring up the bench very quickly, guys, Benzema is the other guy I think will benefit from that, because Benzema is kind of a little bit of a hold-up player, a bit of a player who can score a variety of different goals and can be a little bit more dangerous in the box kind of thing, as opposed to Mbappe, who really, when you look at Mbappe's strengths, and I'm not saying Mbappe can't do it all, because Mbappe very clearly can do it all, but a big strength of Mbappe's is running in behind the defence and, you know, getting at the team on their counter-attack or finding those little areas. And I don't think there's going to really be many of those little areas, many of those gaps, many of those holes, many of those opportunities to counter-attack when you're playing against Hungary. I don't think there's going to be many opportunities like that. And whilst I would never advise any of you guys to go without Mbappe, please guys, if you are even slightly concerned, just go for Mbappe. Go for Mbappe. It's simple as that. Don't even second guess yourself. Don't doubt yourself. But for my own team, I'm more willing to take a little bit of a risk, guys. If you followed me through the Fantasy Premier League season, you'll know I do like a little risk. And this is kind of one of the little risks I do want to go for. Going for Griezmann and Benzema instead of, you know, Griezmann and Mbappe, or Benzema and Mbappe. I'm going to go for these two instead, just because in this particular game, I do think it may lend itself to a little bit of Benzema's style of play, a little bit more of Griezmann's kind of style of play. I think those two are going to be very crucial. And I'm not saying Mbappe's not going to do amazingly, because he probably will do amazingly as well. But I don't see why he would do too much better than Benzema or Griezmann in this particular game. For you guys, would not recommend leaving Mbappe out. This is my risk to take. This is my burden to bear. This is my decision to make of my own team. If you want to follow along with it, then, you know, you take the risk. You take the risk. But this is very much my risk, and I know I'm going to get absolutely slated in the comments for it. But, you know, this is just maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'll change my mind by tomorrow. But this is kind of just my thought process right now. We'll see if I bottle it and go for Mbappe at the end. I probably will end up bottling it and going for Mbappe. But this is where I'm at right now. And then we obviously got Lloris on the bench for the easy clean sheet, but unlikely to get any save points, like I said earlier. We've got Bruno Fernandes, who is just one of the best midfield players in the game. I know he's playing against Germany, but he's still one of the top players. I've got an unlimited budget, so, you know, who else do I bring in? Maybe Bruno Fernandes is one of the players I'd be more willing to sacrifice in this team. And we've got Jordi Alba, who I very much do like. I think he would look brilliant in that first game, very attacking as he always is. And this game against Poland, I think he could really get at them. I didn't think too much of Poland, to be honest, in the first game. So I do think there's going to be some good opportunities for some Spanish players. And defensively, if you've got unlimited budget, why not go for 6 million Jordi Alba, who is just so attacking and, crucial to creating chances and taking a couple of shots himself as well. Guys, this is my team right now. There is almost certainly going to be changes by tomorrow. There really is. I'll be obviously streaming my final team tomorrow, but the way the fixtures are laid out, I can't really tell you my final team until I've watched every single player play. There's 3 more games to play as I record this video, so I can't tell you for sure who's going to be in my team. But this is very roughly what my team's going to look like. I think if I change anything, I'll take out either Griezmann or Benzema and put Mbappe in. Maybe I mix around the midfield a little bit. Maybe I take Wijnaldum out. Maybe I take Bruno Fernandes out. The rest is pretty much set, other than Dumfries, who I think I could potentially sacrifice for a different defender, depending on how I feel. We'll decide that a little bit later on. But yeah, my team is roughly going to look like this. As for captains, day 1, Insigne. Day 2, maybe Meunier as a bit of a risky captain potentially there. Day number 3, we probably go for Harry Kane. That's probably the sensible one. And then on the 19th, the final day, I will go for a French attacker if we get that far. But hopefully we'll have our 10 points or more wrapped up by that point. I am really hoping anyway, because it's so scary changing your captain, isn't it, guys? I'm sure you guys have risked it all. Maybe it's come off, maybe it hasn't. But yeah, that's my team, guys. Tell me what you think in the comments. Don't go at me too harshly for not picking Mbappe, because I do still think Mbappe is one of the best choices, but you can only have 3 strikers. I wish I could have 4 or 5, I really do. But you can only have 3. And I'm wondering, maybe I'm overthinking this, but I'm wondering if Griezmann and Benzema are more suited to this game against Hungary, thinking how Hungary are gonna play. But I need to watch the games first before I make any final decisions. I will need to watch today's games, so we'll revisit this tomorrow during the stream. But guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please do leave a like, it massively helps the channel, and of course subscribe if you want Euro fantasy tips pretty much every single day. We're going to try and help you out the best we can and help you win your mini leagues and just dominate, basically. That's the hope. Aside from that, guys, if you want to follow me on Twitter, please do, at FPL Mate, Instagram too, at FPL Mate as well. And that's pretty much it. Hope to see you guys on the deadline stream tomorrow. I'll take off this England headband off, finally, I think. And I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.